Hey friends. So today I wanted to talk about something that I've seen plague so many people and also plagued me in certain areas of my life, for much of my adult life. And I think when it comes down to the core of it, it's a fear of what other people will think or fear of what other people will say, right? And I thought that, I was relatively free of it in some ways, but there's always a way in which there is that hook right into our life and what it's preventing us from doing. And I think about um, I think it's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, if I'm not mistaken, who wrote a book about death and dying and some of the top 10 regrets or a deathbed regrets of the dying. And one of them is not having done what you wanted to do because you were afraid of what other people will think, right? Sort of dying with your music still in you type of thing. Um, so this is really crippling for a lot of people. I especially see it with entrepreneurs who are people I've worked with in the past, um, who would not, who would have visibility blocks and an inability to show up fully as who they are because they're so afraid of what other people will think, just always constantly being sort of hampered by that in a way that prevented them from showing up and doing their best work and giving their best selves and even being their most magnetic self, magnetic to sales, magnetic to moving forward, because they were always presenting something that wasn't fully themselves. Obviously, this wasn't the case with every single person, but um, people sometimes have a version of this. And it was really soul crushing to watch people who had such beautiful gifts and such great offerings to share and were such high quality people not being willing to shine for fear of being terrorized by what other people might say, right? So preemptively, right? It's not even like it's happening, but they're so afraid that it'll happen that they don't move forward. So my own process with this most recently was in coming out as a spiritual entrepreneur, as an energy healer, and so forth. So when I was in the most recent training I had, which was a year-long healing mastery training, um, based on ancient Vedic techniques, there was a process that we did. We did so many different processes that we were blessed to be taught. Um, by my teacher, Alex Utterman, as handed down to her by Swami Kaleshwar, you know. Um, so there's one process that we did uh, that took 5 months to complete. We're doing multiple processes sort of concurrently, and one process took about 5 months to complete in full. But the first phase of that process ended after about 3 months. So that's quite a lot of time to be daily investing into a process, right? To gain a certain energy channel. And at the end of it, at the end of the first 3 months, we were going to do a ceremony. And as part of that, anything that we had worn that day had to be let go. You could give it away, you could throw it away, whatever, but you could never wear it again. And so obviously you start thinking, well, what am I willing to part with that I'll never see again? So obviously no jewelry that you're unwilling to part with, no clothing, you know, any undergarments, you're going to throw those away, obviously. So really kind of being careful and selective about what you're going to do. So, of course, I started looking at my cleaning the house outfits. the ones that are just kind of worn and raggedy, and I probably should have thrown them away anyway. And so I chose quite a clownish outfit. It just nothing went together. I would just if I wore any of these in public, they'd always be covered up with like maybe a big sweatshirt or, something, to sort of make it decent. A pair of shoes I would never ordinarily wear. And I told my son, I was like, okay, so when I drop you off today at school, we cannot be late because I knew that if we're late, I have to go um, sign you in at the principal's office. And this principal is really in her right calling because she was born to be a principal. She has a very stern face that she presents. She's a beautiful woman, but she can look so stern and so judgmental and just a withering look, right? So of course, we were late that day, just by like 2 minutes, but it was late enough to not be able to just drop him off in the school line where I could stay in the car, wave to the teacher who received him, and move on with my day. I had to walk into the office and I looked a hot mess. I mean, and at the time I had a rash, like a full 360 rash around my neck that I'd earned by doing healings but not decharging them enough, and maybe I was going through my own purification, but it almost looked like psoriasis. It was just like thick and dark and scaly and just all around my neck. So I had that going. I was wearing a t-shirt that was too tight and it said astrology and herbalism for the modern day that I'd been gifted by a friend, but I just gained like 20 pounds, so I just couldn't fit it well into that shirt anymore. I just only been hanging on to it because it had sentimental value. Um, and yeah, just the t-shirt just too tight, looking like Winnie the Pooh, very weathered, sweatpants with a weathered sweatband that was like all frayed, wearing interview shoes that were just way too tight and they just made this clippity clop, clippity clop, clippity clop like a horse, you know, on the tile floor of the school office. So it brought even more attention to myself. And this one is very Christian, I imagine, because she looked at my shirt and she was just completely disgusted that I would be into astrology and herbalism. So it was just really kind of a very awkward situation. But I had to do right by my son. I had to sign him in and I had to make him feel comfortable and not make it seem like anything was askew. And I also had to do my duty to the process that I dedicated myself to. Um, and the stakes were high to mess that up. And ultimately that process was not just to benefit myself, it was to benefit other people, to be able to share with other people. And so I walked in the office and the woman just gave me this up and down, like eyelashes up, eyelashes down, just sort of withering, just like her best withering look that she gave me that morning. And I didn't feel anything. I just smiled, said good morning, signed him in, went about my day, clippity clopped out of that office with my little Komodo dragon neck and my crazy Komodo dragon in drag clown outfit. Um, and I didn't feel anything. And I realized that one of the things I had received as a great blessing in that process was, you know, the ability of people's opinions to stick or to prevent me from doing what I wanted to do, whatever. That another layer of that, like a deeper layer, had just went away. It had been washed away, right? And I started thinking about, wow, like this idea of I'd done it in other areas. I'd forged a different path, or been forced into a path, however it goes, um, that was unconventional and very different from what my family would have wanted or what, you know, whatever situations, education, whatever was expected of me. But just spiritually, I was always very private with my spirituality. I didn't come out with it, and I certainly wasn't um, doing it professionally, right? And this had just washed away that last vestige of holding on to fear of what people would say or trying to caretake people's feelings and, all of that. So this energy healing is really intended to support you um, in being able to let go of any fear of what people are saying that prevents you from being in your right dharma, in your right aligned livelihood, that prevents you from parenting the way that you want to parent, that prevents you from just being in divine alignment with what the divinity is asking for your life, you know, because I think the divinity always asks for something that betters you as a person, but is also bettering the world. So just kind of letting go of any sort of egoism around what needing other people's approval or needing to protect yourself from other people's opinions, because it's just an opinion and it's not actually going to eat you alive, right? You are going to survive. I'm here as evidence. I lived through it. Um, Hopefully, no one is stoning you to death for what you think or what you're doing or what you believe, especially if you know deep in your heart that what you're doing is beautiful and it is, for yourself, but also divine for the world. It's like, why would you hide that? So I hope that this supports you. For this one, just close your eyes. You can say Om, you can say Om Namah Shivaya, quietly internally or out loud if you want to. Um, or you can just try to relax if you know how to do that. If you have a personal mantra from this tradition, you're welcome to use that. If you'd love to receive a personal mantra from this tradition, um, these were personal mantras that were given by Swami Kalashwa. There's about 14 of them, and I do teach about them in my monthly Mechanics of Meditation class. So you're welcome to sign up for that. There should be a link in the description below. If you're coming between classes, then there would be a recording of the class that you could receive. Okay, so yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the next video where I'll talk about um, another episode that is a different angle of not caring about what people think about you. So there's a 1A, 1B, and 1C, and then part 2 is going to be the actual silent energy healing. All right. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.